Hello, welcome to Empower and Ignite Transformation Podcast with Alicia and Nicole. How are you, Alicia?
I'm doing good. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm doing well. I'm so excited about today's topic.
Yes, yes, me too. Let's jump on in.
Yeah. So today's topic, for those that do not know, well, let me just say, if you are new to our channel, please subscribe, like, and share. I always forget to say that. I'm like, listen, it's important to tell people, just in case you're new, that
Mhm.
we would want you to subscribe, like, and share.
And also share with someone that you know, right? Share with your friends and your family about the podcast that you're watching, right? And just, show them something a little bit different.
Definitely. So today's topic is going to be on fear. Oh my gosh. So many people allow fear to hinder them from living their full potential or going after what it is that they really want. I thought this would be a good topic today, because of course, we likely have all been challenged with facing our fears. But some people will not face their fears and will allow the fear to paralyze them.
And that's a good point that you make, right? Because we started off the top of this year telling people about reaching their goals, right? And now here we come into April, about to be May, and
Second quarter.
right. And I'm just wondering in general, is fear stopping us going into that second quarter, right? How
Mhm.
do we feel about, going there? Is it fear that's holding us? Is the fear causing procrastination? Like, how do we overcome those fears?
Definitely. So often, right? Like you said, fear can cause you to procrastinate. It
Mhm.
also can paralyze you, right? It can keep you stuck. So when you think about what is causing the fear, it's going to be so important for people to really to identify what am I really afraid of?
Right.
What have I told myself or what have I heard that I've taken on that has made me so afraid that I won't even take action?
Right. Right.
Yeah. And
And
so oh, go ahead.
oh no, go ahead.
If it is where you're challenged with negative thoughts and you're thinking, well, what if this happens or this doesn't happen the way that I think it should happen, right? But you're never going to necessarily know if you don't do it. So often people are afraid of failure. And I always say, I don't even like to use the word failure, to be honest, because I believe you don't fail, you have an experience and you learn. And so
Right.
if you give up, then of course you've given up on whatever it is that you wanted to achieve. But if you don't get it on the first try, if it doesn't work, it just means that that didn't work that way. I
Right.
now learn that I need to do something different. And so that's not me failing, that's me having experience and learning.
Yes, and that is so big. I tell people all the time, failure is literally not starting. Be- because when you do start, you don't fail, you learn from those experiences. You learn from the situation, and now you can implement that what you have learned and try again, or what you have learned have now changed your method, your route of what you want to do. But none of that says you have failed. The failure of it is I never started it. But
Mm,
if I started it and now my mind took me elsewhere, or it didn't work this time, so now I got to try it again, then how can we say that that's a failure? You're still actively trying at it. So I think that that's a big difference. And then, when I think of failure, we're going to have this healthy sense of, or not failure, I'm sorry, fear. We're going to have this healthy sense of fear. And then we're going to have this unhealthy sense of fear, right? We want the healthy fear. The healthy fear protects us. The healthy fear tells us that, jumping off the house may break a leg, right? That's a healthy fear because that's a possibility of something that really could happen. But in a sense of like, rejection. I'm not going to go because I'm going to be rejected. That's unhealthy. You are already putting a negative notion in your mind of rejection, and what determines rejection, right? What is this definition of, you being rejected because they decided, your speech didn't resonate with them? That doesn't mean you are rejected in that sense. It's just you weren't the person to touch their spirits, right? And so I think that we have to really put ourselves out there and push that fear away.
Yeah, definitely. I hear you saying, okay, so you must conquer. You must do it afraid. You
Mhm.
must really challenge yourself when you are experiencing fear, asking yourself, what is this really about? What am I afraid of really? And it can be where, because oftentimes you may hear people say, well, I'm afraid of not doing well, or I'm afraid of, like we said, the failure. But it also can be, I'm afraid of if I do well, then now I got to keep this up.
Yes.
How would I keep this going, right? And so the pressure of always having to be on or having things figured out, sometimes people will not do things because they're not knowing to what extent that this will take them, right?
Mhm.
Um, and so it's so important for people to know that as you have goals that you set for yourself, things that you want in your life, you don't have to have all the answers.
Right.
It just wouldn't even make sense that you would have all the answers, right? As
Mhm.
if you were God and you know the beginning and the end. It just wouldn't even make sense.
Yes. And I think
So,
that you said that so perfectly. You would just not know.
we have to enjoy the journey. And
Mhm.
that's the thing. We get so caught up in how is this going to turn out? And
Right.
if it does not turn out the way that we would want it to, it just puts us in this whole whirlwind of fear
Mhm.
that would allow people to just not even do it, right? That
Right.
causes them to not act on what it is that they really want. And I say, if you had to think about life and if you just had to think about like what if I didn't do it, how would I feel?
Mm.
I don't want to do or have a life and then I get to the end of my life and I
Right.
did not do and try all of the things that I wanted to.
Correct. At least you can say, I gave it my best. And
Hmm.
that's the biggest thing because, like you said, the fear, it shows up so different. It's normal, right? It is a universal human experience to feel fear. We
Yeah.
all feel it some way. And like you said, it could come up in a sense of, not wanting to, if I succeed, I gotta keep going. That is a healthy fear. It's motivating you, it's pushing you to your next goal that ultimately you want,
Hmm.
right? And that's why you're afraid because that pressure is like, wow, I can actually get what I want. And so there go that word of that healthy fear of, okay, this is gonna the fear of failing is pushing me to keep going down that path.
Yeah.
Right. And so, avoiding the ways that, it does show up, such as the procrastination, that's going to be big, and how to do that, maybe you want to set goals for yourself.
Mhm.
Maybe, quarterly goals, is it weekly goals or monthly goals, depending on what your ultimate goal is. But, even setting those goals and checking off your list, right? That
Right.
is to be very important on being able to conquer some of those fears and getting some of those tasks that you really ultimately want to do, but
Mhm.
something's holding you back. It'll help you get it done.
Right, definitely. I always suggest to put a time frame on every goal
Mhm.
because then that way it's not like, okay, so I have this goal and it's out there and I could just get it done when I want to get it done. No, when you have a time frame on something, now the action steps must align to get you to that goal date.
Yeah.
And so that's going to be important. But also, when we procrastinate, like, it often can be, of course, the fear is a part of why we might procrastinate. But then sometimes when we don't like things, or we
Mm.
feel like we're not going to be good at it, or it's just something that we really even with trying to figure something out, right? I know for me, I'm going to speak for me. Um, Sometimes I might procrastinate and put something off because I'm like, I don't really know how to go about doing this in the way that I would want it done. And so then I might put it off more than I should versus just saying once you get to going with it, you could tweak it.
Hmm.
And if need be, you'll figure it out but you gotta start it. You cannot put it off. And
Yeah.
that's what we have to tell ourselves. So I want people to know that you wouldn't be the only one challenged with fear or the procrastination from fear. But we do it afraid
Right. Right.
because we know if we don't do it, what that feeling would be like.
Hmm.
I know for me, I don't want to, like, I'm big on not living with regret.
Hmm.
And so then that's a part of how I make sure I live my life to
Yeah.
the fullest.
And then the thing about it is, like you said, sometimes, it's the overall of it, right? Of not knowing how or not knowing the outcome that kind of makes us freeze.
Mhm.
I always say too, always suggest opening a business sounds very intimidating. That sounds like a lot of work. But now when you say just open up that LLC, just go to the bank this week,
Mhm.
find a business name, work on a business plan this week. If you break those tasks down into very smaller ones, right? You could start a whole business and not know you did it because you did it very small versus the intimidation of I'm going to sit down with everything and I'm going to look at it all at once. You
Right.
know, that is where that, like you said, I don't know what I don't know until the research is done. So that's where we have to take a step back and not push ourselves into trying to figure that out. And maybe I'll just do a little more research so I can figure it out, where I can break this down, where I can get the goals accomplished, because we're not going to get to our end of our life and be like, I should have, could have, and wish that I did, right? Like, we have to put ourselves out there, take the small steps. Maybe I'll do this week and this next week, but by 2027, that business will be up and running, right? Give yourself that time where it's not that pressure, because that pressure also causes fear because you feel like everything is weighing on you at once.
Yeah, definitely. So you saying, listen, map it out.
Yes.
Yes, I hear the map out. I hear research, and it's okay to ask questions.
Yeah.
That's an important piece because so often people will get stuck with not feeling like they have enough information. And then
Mhm.
sometimes they get stuck because they have too much information.
Yeah.
And then now they're like, what do I do with all this information?
All these tasks of things that you're telling me, open an LLC, go to the bank, create a business name, create it. Oh my God, there's so much you're telling me to do. But it's different when, okay, I'm just on step one and we're going to take this step by step.
Right. And that's why I think the dates are important when it comes to the deadline because if you give yourself the time to do something, you now know, okay, I have this date to complete this, and then I can move to the next, right? But everything has a time frame, and not that you don't have a room for adjustments because some things is not in our control. So we
Yeah.
definitely have to know that. But things that are within our control, we must act on it.
Hmm.
And we must ensure that we're doing it expeditiously but efficiently, right?
Yeah.
And that's so important. I think too, people get in their own way, right? Self-sabotage because of the fear. So they likely have told themselves so many different things. The
Yes.
thoughts start to come to them, or even just them listening to other people. I know for me, I often don't share something that I'm working on with people or too many people, right? If I tell one or two, that might be because that person can relate. But I'm likely, if I'm trying to get something done or I'm working on something, I might not share that. And it's not because I don't want anyone to know. I just want to make sure that I only hear my voice and not noise from other people that likely is unsure of themselves or could want to know how are you gonna figure it out because they can't figure it out. So they're like, well, how can you do that? And you're like, in your own, I'm gonna do it because that's what I said I'm gonna do. I'm gonna figure it out. But I can't have a lot of noise,
Mhm.
so sometimes I do keep things to myself until I'm ready to, is to fruition. Or I feel like I can take anybody's comments and be
Mhm.
able to be okay with the comments. That can be a factor for people. They
Yes.
have to
Love
know.
that. Yeah, I love the way you said that, right? Because you have to know who you are. And that's important because again, people can come with these negative things or just too many positive things that you just like, "Oh, okay." Sometimes it is that maybe I need to keep it to myself until I'm ready, until I got everything together. And then there's other people, right? Because I know people who like to go to social media and says, "I'm losing 50 pounds by the summer," because now they feel obligated
Mhm.
to lose 50 pounds because they did put it out there and now they have to live up to that goal. So it really is. Everyone have this different process on what pushes and what motivates them to reach whatever goal it is. And so I think that that's a good statement that you said. You literally have to know if it's better for you so you don't feel the sense of fear by other people putting their fears on you.
Right.
Keep it to yourself because people can see it. They can hear what you're saying you want to do, and they could be like, "That's a great idea," but then their fears creep in, and they start to slide their fears, and you hear them, and you like, "Wow!" And
Yeah.
now your fear is up high, right?
Right. And it might not, that's not their intention. They don't even know that they're doing it necessarily, but it's just their thoughts. And
Right.
so they spoke their thoughts.
Yes.
And so then now you took on their thoughts. And now you processing their thoughts as if they're your thoughts. Losing focus. So
And that
no, we're not doing that. We're gonna let everybody have their own thoughts to themselves and you gonna focus and really do it afraid. I always say, you're not going to know. And so when you conquer your fear, it builds confidence.
yes.
The more things that you do will build your confidence in you having the ability to try new things, to do
Mhm.
things, and you would know, oh, I'm capable of doing these things. I don't know the outcome,
Right.
but I do know I have the ability to do anything that I set my mind to do. That builds confidence.
Yes, yes. And living in fear, right? It takes away your confidence, right? And I think that that's a big thing that people have to realize because that emotional exhaustion of I can't do or I'm afraid to do or the things that I want to do, I'm not reaching those goals, so I don't feel, self-fulfilled, right? That causes anxiety, that could cause a depression, that could cause burnout because you just feel stuck in something that you like I know I don't have to work for this person. I can start my own, but yet, that confidence, that fear have pushed you back to thinking that the best that I can do is always work for this person, right?
Mhm.
And so that's why it's so important to, notice, okay, there's something holding me back from reaching this goal. Is it fear? If it is fear, okay, now it's time to take the proper steps to overcome my fear.
Yeah, definitely. And when you said, okay, so I don't know if I can work for myself. I don't know if I can start my own business. I don't know if I'm going to have to work for somebody for the rest of my life, whatever that might be in that person that thinking that. So, of course, you would likely think through all of the things it would require to start a business, but also to maintain a business, to grow a business, right? So really being realistic with yourself about the responsibilities, and it is easier to work for somebody else.
Mhm.
because you don't have all of the responsibilities of you being the owner of this business. You have the responsibility of going in and fulfilling the responsibilities of that role, of those duties, of that position that you've taken. But when you have your own business, it is more work because you are not only working in the business, but you're also trying to grow the business. And it's more layers to being a business owner than actually just going to work for somebody. So you got to be honest with yourself if that is something you struggle with. And that can be a fear of, can I do it? You're not going to know unless you actually do it. But it also can be a fear in, am I confident in ensuring myself in holding myself with integrity
Right.
to do what I said I wanted to do?
Mm.
And sometimes people will have fear because of them not having integrity with themselves.
Okay. And that's that commitment issue of really, if you're gonna start, you gotta stick it out as well. And that's the biggest thing too, because, like you said, when you said it's not just starting, it's maintaining, it's growing, it's marketing, it's a lot to it. But when
Mhm.
you hear that, there go all those different fear thoughts, right? Just creeping on in. Break that down.
Mhm.
First, you gotta get started, then we gotta figure out how you're gonna grow. Like, what is the ultimate game plan when you do that business plan, right?
Mhm.
Make sure you like you said, you're mapping it out.
Right.
That's gonna
Being
help.
honest with yourself, holding yourself accountable, like
Right,
knowing your personality, knowing who you are, and not that over time when you start a business, you won't eventually hire or delegate. That's the whole thing about the growth piece. You would bring on, and you now will be able to give the pieces that you don't like to somebody else that maybe you feel like they're more suited for it. But initially it will be you on the ground.
right, right. Yeah,
So definitely that. And then just really being clear with yourself about your thoughts, because the limiting beliefs, that's what often brings about the fear as well, because of those limiting beliefs people put on themselves. And they have to ask themselves, are these my beliefs? Or did I take these beliefs on as
yes.
being the truth, right? Who gave me these belief systems?
Right, right. And, we talked about the fear of moving forward and reaching goals and the fear of, being able to, kind of get to where you want to go in life, right? But there also fear in relationships. There's fear of starting over.
Mhm.
There's fear of, what people going to say if I do,
Mhm.
right? There's a lot of fear when it comes to even in the romantic sense of things. And so we
Definitely.
have to acknowledge there's fear there too. And what
Yeah. It could be in any area of your life. I'm so glad you brought up the relationship piece, right? Especially if someone has been in, if they're starting over from a divorce. Or, just even when I think about me being a widow, being married for 25 years, and then now you are now putting yourself back out there, right? And your prior person. They know you two grew together. But now, being older, it's like, okay, so now you got to learn another person and you got to get to know this person. And so that could definitely bring about some fear, because it's the unknown, but you also have to do it afraid, right? You got to know, okay, so I want this and it will require me to step out my comfort zone, to not overthink how this likely will be, and just enjoy the journey. So often we don't enjoy the journey
Mhm.
because we're worried about controlling
The outcome.
it. Hmm.
Yes, yes, and you make good points because, divorce, same difference, right? You could be with your spouse for 20 years and you'd be like, "Oh, I'm just miserable. It's time to start over," but I'm afraid. What if I go out there and don't find anyone? What if I go out there and end up alone? Or what if, I go get my heart broken again? So you have that fear of taking that step to go back out there, but you already said you was unhappy.
Yeah. You're not
So
gonna know, right? So if you live life with fear to the
mhm,
extent of it paralyzing you,
you could stay in something that makes you unhappy even longer,
right?
right? Because you're paralyzed, you're stuck, and now you're internalizing it, and that's not good. That's not good, nor is it healthy for us.
It is not totally. You're right. So I believe to do it afraid,
Mhm.
try not to live with regret.
Yeah,
And you're not gonna know. You don't have control over anyone else. You only have control over you, your response and reaction.
yeah.
So definitely.
Yeah. And anytime there's an opportunity, and if you feel like it's fear that's stopping you from reaching that goal of that opportunity, that's when I want you to really take a step back and figure out, what do I need to do to overcome that fear?
Hmm.
Because it's what you want. So, it's really big. If it's you really want it and it's like, I just can't get it, it may be fear. And if that is the answer to what is stopping you from getting there, it's time to do the work. It's time to do the work to overcome that fear to be able to be the best person that you choosing to be.
Right. Identifying what the thoughts are that's coming to you that's causing you to be afraid.
Correct.
Challenge those thoughts, right? Not
Hmm.
just challenge, but replace them with a positive, and dismantling. So that's going to be really key. But then
Hmm.
you're going to go ahead and do it afraid, whatever it is, because to get to the end of life and look at and say, I wish I had a done, I wish I had a did this or that. I
Yeah.
think that outbeats fear.
Correct. Correct. It does. It does. And I'm just gonna say that's gonna come with even that roller coaster ride, that jumping out of that plane. If you want to do it, do it. Over.
Right. The vacation alone, a
Yeah.
solo trip.
Conquer all those fears. Yeah.
Listen, definitely, whatever it is, it can be, as grand or as small, but to you is what you want, but you're afraid to go after it. And I think that everybody should just live life to the fullest because you only get one.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think that, honestly, if I get to the end of life and say the only thing that I didn't do and fear took over me is jumping out of a plane, I'm okay. If I conquered every other thing that I was afraid of besides that one thing, I'm okay. But I'm not going to have this whole list of a whole bunch of fearful things that I didn't do. And I don't
Yeah.
think it either. So that's going to be
Definitely. Listen, the plane is not a desire of mine, nor is zip lining. I will leave that to all those adventurous people.
I hear.
But that is not something that I desire to do. So I'm so glad I do not desire that.
I got a desire to jump out of a plane, but that might be one of them fears. I'm gonna overcome
Oh,
one.
we.
This was such a good topic, talking about fear, ways to overcome fear, take the steps. Again, mental health therapist, a counselor, they can also help you. Again, we don't have
Yeah.
to go in there with just I got depression. Maybe I just want to come in and talk about that fear, and that is a space that you could do that too.
Yeah, Alicia, that's so true. I'm so glad because we have to always remind our listeners and just people that listen, therapy is not solely because you got diagnosed with a mental illness or that you are experiencing some trauma or it's something that is where it is emotionally tied. Yes, fear is an emotion, but it can be related to wanting to achieve goals and conquering fear. So we don't want you to think that therapy is solely just for the diagnosis that you've heard likely about. It can just life transitions, right?
Right.
Working on career, relationships, conquering fear, achieving goals, all of the things. Therapy is for everything.
Like for real, I'm gonna
Period.
talk to my
Listen,
therapist.
that's what therapy is for everything.
So yes. So as always, don't forget to like and subscribe. Send us new topics each and every week, and every Tuesday, come for a new episode.
Yeah. All righty. Take care.